All right, all right, all right. Welcome to another edition of Shabbat Lounge. This is Matt.
And Jake here.
We appreciate you stopping by to listen to us. How's it going, Jake?
It's going well. It's been a busy couple weeks, but back in the studio.
Yes. So Jake just recently moved, and his life is a lot different than it used to be. He went from typical suburbia to more of a rural setting.
That's right. Kind of, I grew up kind of in the wilderness of PA, but, so I'm kind of trying to get back to that kind of living down here.
Yeah.
And it's similar, but different. So.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Same but different.
That's right.
Well, we've had a lot of things happen since the last time we podcast. It seems like the world just keeps getting crazier. It's like every day you just expect them. I mean, they might as well tell you tomorrow that chainsaw bears are attacking metropolitan areas, and I probably would believe it.
Yeah, it's right around the corner, I'm sure.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you just never know what tomorrow may bring. So, but if you're listening to this, we definitely don't believe there is any reason to fear or to panic. Yahuwah has this. This is it's all under control.
That's right. Yep. He's does not give us a spirit of fear. So and he's in control of things, and he uses a lot of things to get people's attention. And as long as we're trusting him, we should be good to go.
Yeah, he's definitely not in the chaos. That's for sure. So I don't believe, if we learn anything about Yahuwah and his word, he is the, he's a perfectionist, and he's not about craziness and chaos and randomness. He's very calculated.
Right.
But I don't know. I'm sure everyone listening to this has seen the mask thing. And Jake, do you have to wear a mask at work?
I'm not allowed to go to work. But if I did go to work, I would have to wear a mask. Yes.
So can you even go to work to get, like, say you forgot some important book that you need?
I can work from work, but they recommend we don't. So.
Do you have to, like, make an appointment and someone has to be there and watch you and make sure that...
They do the take your temperature and, pat you on the bottom 3 times as you go through the door.
How are they taking that temperature?
Right.
Wait a minute.
I don't go into work.
Yeah. Well, and I've been to a few a food service facility, and they do that and make you fill out a questionnaire, and it's like almost like the FBI. It's almost like they're going to call people that know you. And has he been around anyone that has a fever? Okay, he's good.
Yeah.
So
I think it's just better to. I mean, I get to spend time with my family now.
Yeah, that's good.
So why would I go into the office, I guess?
Well, and I've had one facility, the same facility made me wear a mask. In fact, they wouldn't let me in one day. I forgot I had a bandana in my console, and the HR lady came and met me at the door, and she's like, "We can't let you in here." And I was like, "I bet I could find something." No, we can't let you in here. I just need to turn no. So I came back the next time with a mask. So
yeah.
And then I had a lady the other day that I met with her, and she texted me beforehand. She's like, "I know it's a pain, but could you wear a mask?" And so I was like, "I got a bandana," and she's like, "That's fine." So it's 100 degrees almost, and I'm outside talking to this lady, and I had to wear a mask. And I'm like,
nice.
"Lady, we're outside, right?"
Yeah.
So, and it's not like I even have to get close to people. So,
right.
But that's where people are. And if I know anything, it is very easy to judge people from our high horse, if you will. But Yeshua accepts me where I'm at,
right.
And I have to accept people around me for where they're at. And this is where they're at, and I just have to accept that that's the reality that they live in.
Yeah. Yep. It's a little bit of it's a courtesy thing.
Yeah. It's like the weaker brother thing.
Courtesy thing.
Because I could be like, that's ridiculous. This is all made up, lady. I'm not doing the mask. Forget it. I could be a big jerk about it. And And it would cost me financially. So that would be stupid. So, but if you wanted to, you could.
You could, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So this whole mask thing kind of got me thinking about leprosy, and there was a Torah portion we read a while back, and so I started. Oops.
Oh man.
So I started working on this one day, and I shared this with Jake. And what did it say?
Oh, it said. So Matt, we collaborate via whatever it is, slide sharing technology, and I got a notification that says Matt has shared leprosy with you. And so I checked myself real quick to make sure nothing was falling off of me or anything. So.
Yeah, that's good. All right, well, we'll dive right into it. You know, when I started looking it up, leprosy is also known as Hansen's disease. Have you ever heard of Hansen's disease?
I have, and I'll just be up front, most of the information I have about leprosy and Hansen's disease comes from the X-Files.
So. Oh, straight from the X-Files. Did Scully have leprosy?
No, they ran into a group of folks in a colony.
Is this the old one or the new one?
The old series.
I don't remember. But so we're going to dive in and kind of look at it. So, you know, I get a lot of this information came from the WHO, and not the rock band and not Tommy, but the World Health Organization. And I know some people out there listening to this may be rolling your eyes and going, the WHO, blah. So, but
I know. We don't even give them money. So why are we listening to them?
I think we're still giving them money. I don't think it cut off instantly. So I think a lot of people did hear Trump say we're not giving any more money, and they're like, "Oh, just shut off right then."
This is the date.
I imagine it takes a year or so. The money's already been released. They're not pulling all that back, but which I think is a good thing. I think the WHO was kind of ridiculous, and we pay the largest percentage. You know, we can go into that, but it's crazy. So anyway, so this is their map. Of how many new cases, and I don't believe that they would. There's no reason that I know of why they would make these numbers up, and so
I don't see a lot of media on the fudging of leprosy.
No.
Or the outburst of leprosy.
Yes. So in
just not much to be gained there.
Right. And the leprosy tends to be concentrated more in warmer climates. You know, you don't have it as much in the Arctic Circle. You know, it tends to be
also not a lot of people in the ocean.
Yeah, there's not a lot of people up there. That does make a difference. Not that many people in Greenland. You know, it's not reported. North Russia, Siberia. Yeah.
But once we buy Greenland, look out.
Yes. Then it's all over.
Yeah.
So, but you know, this map, this kind of doesn't really tell you a whole lot, but and so I will eventually make this available online. But if you wanted to see where we got this, you know, this isn't just Jake and I making this up and just pulling out of the random blue. It takes you right to the World Health Organization, Southeast Asia, and there's this whole thing about global leprosy program with the E. You know it's official when you see that. So, and it has all kinds of stats and figures. If you are a nerd and want to look that up, you can. That's where it came from. So, anyway, back to this. And how do I...
You can click.
There we go.
There you go.
So, and this is according to ScienceDirect.com, another website. And so this is the map that I pulled, and I think this map is better. So, I think this map is probably more accurate.
Yeah, because Texas is not indicated as having a lot of leprosy here, so we like this one better.
Although Texas seems a little small on that map, so that's not a true Texan map. So, anyway, but it does seem to line up with the theory that you have more of this between the two tropics, Tropic of Cancer and Capricorn on the the latitude lines on the globe, and there does seem to be a connection between hot and humid weather and leprosy.
And as you'll see in the later slides, some other qualities in these regions.
Yes. So, what is leprosy? So, it's caused by bacteria on the skin, and it's also transmitted by mucus. It's got a 5-year incubation period, and it seems to be connected to poverty and diet. So, this thing can live in your body 5 years before you know that it exists, and you could affect potentially other people. Now, although leprosy is not like the COVID, supposedly, that is highly transmittable, leprosy is, I don't think if you're around somebody that's leprous,
it just jumps into you.
Yeah, I don't think you have to worry too much.
But with a 5-year incubation period, I mean, maybe you and I do have it. Who knows?
Good.
Maybe you did give me leprosy.
Maybe I need to stop chasing and catching armadillos, apparently.
Ooh, yeah.
So I hear they give it to you.
Yes.
So don't do that. Don't lick an armadillo.
Exactly.
We're going to put that on our next t-shirt with a picture of an armadillo.
Let me just write that down.
Okay. And so this comes from the PMC. Everybody knows the PMC. And the U.S. National Library of Medicine. And the NIH. So lots of acronyms, good 3 solid acronyms.
That's how you
there.
know it's real.
Yes,
and official.
Just like the CIA. So anyway, they came to the conclusion that poverty, and this is a direct quote from them, poverty means more than just a lack of income. It also encompasses the multiplicity of non-monetary aspects that then combine and intensify the negative effects of being poor, including lack of proper food and nutrient intakes. Correspondingly, food shortage, food insecurity, and lower dietary diversity are several aspects of poverty that are more commonly found in those struggling with leprosy. And Jake, I probably clicked on that again. So is that the same one? All right. You read that one.
Okay. Previous studies have shown positive associations between food shortage and food insecurity with the occurrence of leprosy, and it was suggested that impaired host immune response against the causative bacteria as a result of insufficient nutritional intake is the possible cause of this condition.
That one too.
However, there has been no systematic study on how various aspects of poverty interact and associate with leprosy to support the suggestion, particularly in Indonesia, which is currently the home of more than 17,000 new leprosy cases registered annually and has the highest proportion of multibacillary cases.
Good word.
I made it up myself.
Yes, it makes it sound really smart when we read that. So those are not our words.
You can just say MB.
Yes.
So.
Yes. And so the purpose of this research, which is part of the micro-lep study, is to elucidate what does that mean?
Enlighten. Let me enlighten you as to what.
Okay. Elucidate. Okay. The association between poverty-related dietary intake and leprosy by determining the interaction between demographic, socioeconomic, and diet-related factors of poverty on several nutrition indicators, which encompasses people with leprosy and health controls in the Indonesian population. And then when I make this available on the website, you should be able to click there and go, if you want to see more.
And that website again is sabbathlounge.com.
Yes, that's right. So, Jake, this all, we'll talk, so basically the inclusion of that, they say that what I got is that poor diets, terrible living conditions, you find more leprosy. What is your take on what we read there?
Yeah, basically that. It's, poverty, living in poverty kind of lends you to coming into contact with a lot more unclean things.
Yeah, it kind of makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Digging through the trash, and especially Indonesia and India, you get this impression of people, going through the trash dumps looking for food, and it makes sense that, yeah, you might get something.
You might be catching something.
Yeah, definitely seems biblically unclean.
Yeah.
Unclean till evening.
What does this have to do with how did you connect this with the Torah portion?
Well, I started thinking about it like this. It's an inward disease that manifests with visible symptoms, So people who have leprosy often don't know for a while, and it resides in their body, and then boom, all of a sudden they start seeing little spots and these lesions that start appearing. And so when that happened, especially in the ancient world, it caused separating from family and friends and community because nobody wanted to be near the leper. You are very unpopular when you're the guy or the girl with leprosy. It spreads by contact, and it causes much pain and suffering. No doubt. Still to this day, a lot of this is,
yeah, I think they've kind of gone away from the commune, the leper colonies.
Yeah. Although there was still one like in Hawaii not that long ago.
Right? I mean, I might fake leprosy to live in Hawaii for a while.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that insensitive for me to say?
Maybe so.
Okay,
Maybe
sorry. I'm just saying Hawaii might be a fun place to visit.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we're not trying to say anything by that, but yes, definitely. Things have changed in how it's treated for sure, and I think they figured out that you can contact and be around people, and it's not like these other things where you're for sure going to get it.
Yeah, and we might notice that with some other diseases,
right?
That we're currently dealing with.
And with leprosy, it could be seen and heard. So it attacks the vocal cords, and so they develop a raspy voice.
This was interesting to me because it's like there's like no getting away from it.
Yeah.
There's like nothing about you that gets through this leprosy stuff.
Right. You can't hide it. You can't put on makeup and be like, I'm good. Everything's fine. Didn't really work that way.
No.
And it had a stench to it, because a lot of times there was literally rotting flesh, like gangrene, black nastiness. And so, and it causes numbness. It starts uncomfortable. It has wounds and sores, and eventually you can lose all sensation and numbness. And supposedly these, it's not uncommon for someone that's got a bad case of leprosy to lose an appendage and they don't know.
That sounds terrible.
I know. And somebody's like, dude, you just lost your finger. So, I don't know. Sounds terrible.
It sounds terrible.
Mm-hmm. And it can transmit on surfaces. It cannot be hidden, just like we talked about. So you can't hide this. It leads to muscle weakness and blindness. It makes you unemployable. It's hard to get a job when you got these things going on.
Yeah.
Often, especially in ancient times, they lived the way homeless people do. They lived in camps and they depended on each other for survival.
And I think the point of this slide was that you start to see some similarities to kind of how things are going right now.
Exactly, and some of them,
right?
Yeah, and they've gone back and forth on so many things about it can live 72 hours on surfaces. Well, maybe it doesn't do that, and who knows? Everything's gone back and forth, but
wear the mask, don't wear the mask.
Mm-hmm.
It helps, it doesn't help.
Mm-hmm.
They've literally been on every side of the equation there.
Yeah. And
global warming.
Yes.
Excuse me, I think I'm catching something.
I think you are. And if you have this or someone, for the early days in our company, we were afraid, man, if somebody gets this, we're going to get shut down.
Yeah.
Ironically, I found out this week, okay, so when this all started, I went to this lady's house and I had found out, that day her school had a meeting and she had told me, and she had kind of been freaked out. She's like, I feel better. The school made me feel better. Great. But I had heard the story of how it started in our particular county was that somebody worked in a school system, and that's patient 0 in our county. Well, this lady that I talked to back in early March, she was in contact with patient 0. And so I was around in contact with her, but it was for a brief period of time. And she was like third contact because her child was in the class with this person. So, but in contact tracing, I would have been pinged.
You would have been the guy.
I would have been in quarantine.
Yeah.
Had they done that. Had no idea.
I'm going to back away slowly. I forget, where's my mask?
Yes. So I thought that was pretty crazy because I remember watching all that and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And then I found that out. I was like, oh, wow. Crazy. Thank you for telling me, I think.
And yeah, it's almost as if you were protected in some way.
Yes, yes. Very much so. And so anyway, so when we're going to talk about sin, and so clearly it doesn't, you probably can see where this is going. Sin is also caused by an inward condition of the heart, condition of the mind. Often in the Bible, when we see heart, they're really referencing the mind, but definitely something that happens inside our thoughts and our inner being.
Or the kidneys.
The kidneys, yeah. And it causes separation from the Father. It spreads like a bit of leaven. It spreads slowly, and it keeps one from the Father.
Yeah,
I said that twice, I guess.
It's interesting that, you can read it as leprosy and go, yeah, that makes sense. Kick them out of the camp. You don't want that spreading throughout the camp. Well, just like when Moses comes down from the mountain and they're all worshiping the golden calf, and he does away with that disease that he doesn't want spreading through the camp.
Mm-hmm.
Well, any number of times that they prevent the disease from spreading throughout the camp. And but it's easy to read it and think of the physical and not connect it to sin. But Yahweh has more in store, more in mind than just the physical. So.
Oh yeah. So joke break. What was the first commandment broken?
It was. I feel like I'm being tricked here, but don't eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil.
Well, the joke would be all of them when he threw them down and broke them on the ground.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
See,
good one, huh?
You got me.
Yeah.
That's why I was reluctant to answer your
question. Yes.
I knew it would make me look a fool.
That was definitely a dad joke, and I apologize for that, but yeah, I am a dad. So anyway, definitely a parallel between sin, and it starts off small, it spreads, eventually you become numb, and you're not even aware of the damage you're doing. You think about alcoholics, and so many people that start down the road of alcohol, it starts off, just a little drink here and there, and it seems like no big deal, nothing. And then pretty soon, it's every day. It turns into a 6-pack. It turns into a case, and they can't function without it. And in fact, their body can't function without it. If they go to stop it, all of a sudden their body is going to revolt and be very upset with them. So, but like leprosy, sin leads to death. You can't hide it, and it produces outcast.
Right. Yeah, I think these are real good tie-ins to likening leprosy with sin, and how really when he's talking leprosy, he means much more, and it's very similar.
Well, and I've also come to the conclusion just this year that all this stuff that we read about in Numbers and Leviticus, even sometimes it's just like, oh my gosh. Well, okay, I get they had 7 bowls and they had this, and there's some of those things where they repeat over and over and over the same phrase over and over and over and over.
Yeah.
And there's some very minute details, and sometimes you're like, why is it recorded? Why do we have to know that these guys carried the sticks of the tabernacle, and these guys carried the cover, and these guys carried the gold dishes? And I think that all of these are interwoven and connected into the concept that all of these people and all of the tribes represent the concept of one body. And that's the deal with leprosy. It's part of the body. And so when you had these skin diseases in camp, they affected the entire body. And just the way sin affects the entire body. So you can make an argument. One reason that we're seeing all the craziness. Part of this is it's just straight up judgment from Yahuwah. I feel like that's part of what it is. He has told us that the wages of sin is death. When we have a long track history in the Bible and else, mostly in the Bible, of how people disobey Him and there's consequences to pay.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that gets a little squirrely on that is when, and maybe you can elaborate on it a little bit, is when. So we'll say, well, Yeshua paid our sin debt, so the consequence for our sinning, we don't pay that anymore. But there's clearly more to that than, and not every sin was had a death penalty tied to it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but there are certain sins had consequences, and those consequences, definitely they don't go away. Just like in the physical, if you get a ticket, I worked with a guy that he was young. He got a ticket, and we were working. It seems like most of my career, except for when I taught, I've been connected to driving in a car. And so this other job I had, I was in car rental, and it involved driving in cars a lot. And my boss one time was gone. He went to lunch. He was gone for hours, and we're like, "What is going on?" This is before we all had cell phones. We didn't know what happened to him, and like it comes to find out, he got a ticket a long time ago. Just kind of forgot about it, didn't think anything about it, and he went to go renew his license. He was a law-abiding citizen. He wasn't trying to break the law or do anything, and he goes to renew his license, and the lady's like, "Sir, can you step over here for a second?" And her countenance changed, and he was like, "What's happening? This is weird.
I don't want to be in line anymore.
I'm just gonna go home now. Forget I ever came here." And then the next thing you know, the trooper comes around the corner. It's like, "Sir, we have a warrant for your arrest. Seems like you have a traffic ticket on your license that you haven't paid for." And he's like, and then he's like, "Can you follow me to the ATM? I can pay it right now." And the guy did, and he got it settled. So I don't think you can do that anymore. But so anyway, but these things kind of have a way of sneaking up on you, and there's a consequence to pay. When you sin, but
it kind of shoots that. We got our free ride ticket now, kind of in the foot. You don't get a free ride. There's still consequences to your sin, even though it's paid for. You still got to deal with. I mean, that's why we live in an imperfect world, right? Because it's still free will and people not choosing the right path and the consequences thereof.
Yeah. So would people say, you could murder someone and there's no consequence because now Jesus saved you and you're covered under the blood? Do you think it works like that? I think that would be that's a pretty weak argument. It doesn't hold up very good. If you go down that's an easy trail to chase, and it seems to destroy it pretty quickly, because most people wouldn't say, because there have been, there's a famous death row inmate in Texas, and she had killed somebody. I can't remember her name. And she converted, and there was a big push to try to set her free. And that's what people were doing, like, "Oh, she's a Christian, she's a good lady now," but she still killed someone,
right?
It didn't, and it's sad. And she even admitted, she said, "Yeah, I know I did this, and I know that there's a punishment for this." So
and it's funny that sounds obvious, and but I've literally had that conversation with people, like early on in Torah, was like trying to explain to them, so you're saying I could do this and something as egregious as murder, and or stealing or something, and it doesn't matter now, right? And they would say, You're right. They have to. You have to say that if you're gonna hold the position, right?
Yeah.
But I was just floored by the fact that people were saying this. It's amazing.
Yeah, that's a greasy grace carried out to really far extent.
Yeah.
So my family hates it when I say that, by the way. So anyway, sin. So sin both required priest involvement. So if any of you have read through the Old Testament, you have seen that before, where the priests were the doctors. And sometimes I read through that and I'm like, man, I would have hated being the priest for that reason alone. Like, I'm sure that I bet that there's a hierarchy amongst these priests, and I bet the new guy had check out the skin infection. That's what you do when you start out. You don't start off cutting the meat. You start off looking at all the gross stuff that people are bringing you. Hey, man, can you look at this?
No, I will not.
Please, sir, put your pants back on. I don't want to see that again. But they definitely...
but you have to after 7 days.
Yeah. But yeah, that definitely would not have been pleasant. You think about they're in the, I'll often think about them in the wilderness doing that. They're in this desert situation. It's hot, it's dusty, and they're probably in a tent or they were outside. Just
it's bad news.
Yeah. If you're a modest person, it doesn't sound like it sounds like your worst nightmare.
It really sounds like there was not a lot of modest people back then.
No, I don't think
you
so.
didn't get the chance to be modest back then.
Yeah. So the priest examines you, and if you're found guilty, you're forced to separate. So there was a procedure they went through. Like if it's white and red and puffy, then you do this. If it's not white and red and puffy and it's getting smaller, then you're getting better. Or we got to wait another 7 days. And so the priest would come back, again and again. And if it's progressing in the right direction, you're allowed back into camp. And both can be a state of living dead. So you can make a strong argument that somebody that's got leprosy, especially in ancient times, they were the living dead. They were the first walking dead, if you will. That's a good series. We should make that.
Maybe go back in time. Make a series called The Walking Dead.
But make it about Walking Dead lepers.
That makes a lot more sense.
Maybe we missed out on an opportunity.
I'm sure that'll work out in the future. We can still do it. It's fine.
It seems so culturally relevant today. So I think people would just love it.
Yeah. Now I wonder. This is an interesting point, though, the living dead situation, because that was Adam, right? He said, "The day you eat of the fruit, you'll be dead."
Yeah.
So he was dead but living. He was the living dead. He was leprous at that point.
Yeah. That's a good point. And in essence, we are in some version of that, while we're here. And both are incurable without divine intervention, especially in the ancient world. Both are connected to poverty. One is a physical poverty, and one is a poverty of spirit. Both require atonement. So you can read all through the details in the Torah about, atonements had to be made.
Right. And when Yeshua is, which I think we'll see a little later, when you see Yeshua and the leper, he tells them, go to the priest.
Right? There's a procedure.
Yeah.
Which is interesting, too, for people that go, he canceled the law. And the law is all thrown away.
Why is he sending people to the priest? It's just... See, why do you gotta bring this stuff up, man? It gets me all riled up. Because if you're gonna say that, when does the time start? Is it when he was born? Or when he started saying it? Or when he died? When is the cutoff?
Yeah.
So...
Yeah, that's a head scratcher. So, as a human, basically you could hear, smell, and see this terrible condition, before as they approach you. Your first impulse is to grab your family and run the other way. Let's go, kids! Yeah, there's a leper. So, you'd be repulsed by it. You might even gag.
How dare you?
I know. it seems like it would get you in trouble in today's society
Right.
if you run away. They'd probably call you what was it, the hate speech or hate crime, just from or racism, or it wouldn't be racism, but it would be a form of prejudice for sure.
Yeah.
So there would probably be some big movement about how we shouldn't
run away,
prejudiced,
shouldn't be scared
to the leprous.
Yep.
Yeah. So, but definitely in the ancient world, they you kind of went the other way. So there was a great scene from The Chosen. We're going to plug that again, where it shows a leprous guy coming in to a merchant store, and the guy he's a Jewish person, and he just freaks out, because this leper coming into his store just made everything unclean. And he's like, I got to throw everything in here away. I don't, everything he touched. And so it was a big deal. It was a big deal.
Yeah.
And
then the last one there, I think I cut you off. You'd be repulsed and you might gag at the sight and sound of them. Yeah. I mean, we need to elaborate. I don't know.
No. And I think a lot of times out of politeness, they would cover themselves up. So you didn't have to necessarily look, but still, you can't cover up the smell.
Well, that's like today, right? Out of for to be polite to people, you get sick, you put the face mask on.
So, how does our Father view this? This is how he sees our sin. He's repulsed by it. He can't stand it. He cuts it off. He throws it out of the camp into the darkness where there's weeping and gnashing of teeth. So it's kind of interesting, our response to some of these things, and especially the ancient response to someone with leprosy, that should be our response for sin. We should do that with sin. It should repulse us. It should gag us, and we should want to run the other way. But unfortunately...
Or send it the other way.
Yeah, but unfortunately we don't.
Yeah, and even, Paul even talks about that, how to, you're supposed to not even eat with a brother that does these things, right? And he talks about fornication and adultery and things like that, but the point stands as explained here that, you don't associate with that.
Yeah.
So, and I hear a lot of times when people say, well, even Yeshua ate with the sinners, right? And, but yeah, he did. But if your brother is doing, you have to engage with the sinner to bring them to repentance. But once he's a brother, that means he has to stop doing certain things. Or you cast him out because he's not acting brotherly.
Yeah, and that is kind of a ridiculous argument to make because, nobody could hang out with Yeshua then. I mean, he couldn't have any contact. He's unclean because everybody's so filthy.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's a good point. So today we've seen quarantine. We have seen mask covering the lip, and so. Just like, it's often said the lepers had to cover their lip. I believe that's in the Torah. It says they had to cover their lip and go, unclean, unclean.
We should institute that. People should be saying that, too.
Yeah, we should. Start that today. Let us know how that goes. At your nearest grocery store.
Yeah. I'll be pointing people. Unclean. That'll go over well.
Yes, you'll be popular.
Will you come bail me out of
Well, have you seen the video? There was a video in New York City where somebody was shopping at the grocery store.
Without a mask.
Yes, and everybody starts just going crazy and yelling terrible things at them, and they're publicly shamed out the door.
Yep.
So it kind of has happened. But
true. Kind of the opposite way around. Other way around, though.
And so we're supposed to stay 6 feet apart. Almost every store you go into. I was at the famous Buc-ee's gas station. Have you ever been to Buc-ee's?
I don't think so.
Well, they have beaver nuggets, and you should try a beaver
That
nugget.
sounds
And they're completely
unclean.
clean. They're completely clean. They're just, if you call sugar clean.
Okay.
So I guess you could make an argument it's really bad for you, and maybe it should be unclean, but it's in
Right.
everything.
My kids are funny. They go, Mommy, this says kosher on it. We can get it. And we're like, okay, it might say kosher. Does not mean it's good for you.
Yeah.
Just because you can eat it doesn't mean you should.
Yeah. This whole bag of sugar says it's kosher.
Right.
So, but Buc-ee's today, I stopped there, which is it's a pretty awesome gas station. You get your T-shirt there. It's got a little beaver on it, and the kids like it. And so anyway, it's a really busy place, and it's one of these places where there's like literally 300 gas pumps out in the front.
We call those sheets. That's sheets up in the upper northeasterly
There's
part
a
of the
big
country.
gas station called Sheets,
Sheets.
and it's like a thing.
Yeah.
And they have food. And,
Yep.
Yeah.
Like they invented that.
Oh, they did.
Well, I don't know.
Invented food in Pennsylvania?
To us, they invented the gas station where you order food.
Oh.
So, yeah.
Started in Pennsylvania. You heard it here first.
Well.
But they have the little markers on the floor, 6 feet apart. 6 feet apart. Everywhere. It's in the bathrooms. It's everywhere. Social distancing saves lives. So, I've just seen that everywhere. Well, this is nothing new. The Pharisees, in their tradition, taught that you had to be 6 feet apart to be clean. That's what they literally taught. Mm-hmm.
From the leper or any unclean person?
I think I specifically was looking up leper.
Okay.
Okay. So, anyway, we have limited mobility, and we're supposed to stay in our own colony, if you will.
Yeah.
So stay in our own camp. And
I like my own colony.
Yeah, I'm good with it. Yeah. Social distancing works well for me.
Yeah.
So less people in my life out in the general public, I'm fine with. So I like all the memes where people are like, where they just talk the same thing, say that the social distancing hasn't affected their life in any way, and they realize that they don't talk to anyone or go anywhere.
Yeah.
So Matthew 8, would you read this one?
When Yeshua came down from the mountain, large crowds followed him. A man with a serious skin disease came and bowed down in front of him. The man said to Yeshua, "Sir, if you are willing, you can make me clean." Yeshua reached out, touched him, and said, "I'm willing, so be clean." Immediately, his skin disease went away, and he was clean. Yeshua said to him, "Don't tell anyone about this. Instead, show yourself to the priest. Then offer the sacrifice Moses commanded as proof to people that you are clean."
Yeah.
There it is.
Just an interesting side note right there. He never said go against what was written before. He just doesn't say that. So if you're trying to talk to someone about Torah, I think this is a good place to argue. For sure. Have them explain to you. If it wasn't a big deal to follow Torah, why did he do that?
Right. Now, one of the things that I usually bring up is that, and there might be some nuance to it because of the way it's worded, but I don't think that it might be a little controversial. Maybe that'll get us some views.
Oh,
but no. So I don't think that Yeshua healed people. Now, I know it says that he, and other places as well, that he heals them, right? It says that, but what does it mean by that, right? That's kind of where I'm going. Because most of the time he says, your faith has healed you. It's the fact that this guy was even willing to come to Yeshua that shows that he had the faith that he would be healed. Ipso facto, he's healed, right? So now that's just me. Maybe, I'm not saying thus says Yahweh or anything, but that's kind of how I see these things happen, is that it's these people, their faith is healing them, and Yeshua is the conduit of that healing. So if you disagree, put it in the comments. And send it to Matt's email.
Yeah, I think I see what you're saying, but I do think you probably touched him. But I mean, I think that it's the power of the Father running through him, but also I think you'd have to study the mighty right hand, and because I believe Yeshua is his mighty right hand.
Well, and he is called the great healer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it says there's healing in his wings.
Yeah.
So, I do think those are powerful things, kind of going the opposite from what you're saying there. But I do believe that he makes it clear that this is, he's doing the will of his Father, and this power has been given to him through his Father.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it's exactly as I'm explaining, but there's something to that, I think.
Maybe it might be a good spin-off one day to do a episode about. And then by the way, it doesn't really say leprosy here. It just says skin disease, so we don't really know what it is. But I do think it's clear that it's kind of amazing. We have God in the flesh who wasn't afraid to reach out and touch a person, when the Pharisees were terribly afraid of this, and they couldn't even be 6 feet near this guy, because of their own rules and things that they said. And I think that's part of what Yeshua does, is he comes along, he's like, you guys don't get it. This is not, you've made it all about you've taken this wrong. And then Mark 1:40-45, and for some reason I went the NIV here, but a man with leprosy came to him and begged him on his knees, if you're willing, you can make me clean. And just stop there. You got to think about this. This is a dramatic scene. And, I feel like some of these moments in time, first off, Yeshua healed so many people. It says that they couldn't record it all. And I feel like it was a nonstop thing for him. This, but I feel like there were many moments in his life where there was kind of a scene made. And so I think, it seems like the crowd kind of stops, and you see this moment where the hush falls over the crowd, and you see this guy begging on his knees, and well, first off, when they realized he's a leper, I'm sure it was like, there was a big circle around him, and they're like, whoa, and it's just Yeshua and this guy in the middle of the circle, and everybody's watching, and just in amazement, and you put yourself in this leper's. We don't know how old he is. It says he's a man, so I'm assuming he's dealt with this for a long time, and he is desperate. I mean, he is so tired. He's potentially lost his entire family, his wife, his children, everyone he loves. He's been cut off from, and so he is in desperate. And so it takes you back to another thing. That is how we should be with our sin. We should be on our knees begging him to make us clean. And I think that's part of what we are supposed to understand with leprosy, is that direct correlation between how ugly, how nasty our sin is in his presence, and how we have to have his healing. So I
think interesting too is you don't see Yeshua seeking people out. They seek him out.
Mm-hmm. Which goes back to the concept of ask, seek, knock, and ye shall find.
Mm-hmm.
And so they did. And that's a great point, Jake. That's a clear, I had never thought about it that way, but that is clear, that when we seek him, we're going to find him. He says that.
Yeah, and if we're modeling Yeshua, do we seek out people to go heal them? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I don't. Yeshua didn't.
Yeah. But he taught those around him that were willing to listen.
Yeah.
And he says, "He who has an ear, let him hear."
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. And then 41, Jesus was indignant. Jake, what did that really mean?
I think when we looked at this, it actually means compassionate.
Yeah.
He had compassion on this person.
Yeah. So he has compassion on him. He reaches out his hand and he touches him. Says, "I am willing." He said, "Be clean." Immediately the leprosy left him and he was cleansed. And I'm sure everybody in the crowd is like, "What?" And it doesn't necessarily say there's a crowd around him, but I think, I don't know.
It kind of always was.
It does seem like there's a crowd around him. Very rarely was he completely alone, I think. And except those moments where he said he went away.
Right.
Yeshua sent him away at once with a strong warning. "See that you don't tell this to anyone, but go show yourself to the priest and offer the sacrifices that Moses commanded for your cleansing as a testimony to them." Instead, he went out and began to talk freely, spreading the news. As a result, Yeshua could no longer enter a town openly, but stayed outside in the lonely places. Yet the people still came to him from everywhere, which is kind of ironic. The lepers probably also lived in the outside lonely places.
Mm-hmm.
And here Yeshua is having to do the same thing.
Yeah. Well, and this is Mark 1.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if he's really got the crowds following him yet.
Right, yeah, that's pretty early on. And then Luke 17:11 through 19. Would you read this one?
Sure. Now, on his way to Jerusalem, Yeshua traveled along the border between Samaria and Galilee. As he was going into a village, 10 men who had leprosy met him. They stood at a distance and called out in a loud voice, "Yeshua, Master, have pity on us." When he saw them, he said, "Go, show yourselves to the priests." And as they went, they were cleansed. One of them, when he saw he was healed, came back, praising Elohim in a loud voice. He threw himself at Yeshua's feet and thanked him, and he was a Samaritan.
Da-da-da.
Yeshua asked, "Were not all 10 cleansed? Where are the other 9? Has no one returned to give praise to Elohim except this foreigner?" Then he said to him, "Rise and go, your faith has made you well." See, this is what I'm talking about. They came to him, and he said, "Okay, go away and you're cleansed."
Yeah, he clearly doesn't touch them here.
Right. And yet it's their faith that made them well. And
Mm-hmm.
it's this idea that I'm talking about, that they even came to him just because of their faith.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, and you can preach a mountain of sermons
Right.
about belief and what you believe.
Right.
And I think that's what we're seeing in our society. If you believe that you're going to get sick, you're probably going to get it. You're going to get this thing. If you sit around and worry about it all the time and watch the news every time, and you're like, when FedEx, UPS knocks on the door to bring your stuff because you never leave your house.
And you hide behind your rolls of toilet paper.
Yes, and your ammo, and you're afraid to interact with any other living human. Yeah.
I think scriptures, if you look at, there's a study on, if you've ever looked at Tom Martinsik, he does a study on health and its relation to scripture, health in the Bible. And it's like a 10-part series or more, and 2.5 hours a piece kind of situation. But he goes into detail on a lot of the tie-ins of what makes people sick and through scripture and stuff, and just that idea there of, if you're like worried about getting sick and you believe you're going to get sick, it talks about that in scripture. And versus, they say that laughter is the best medicine and all this stuff. Well, that's in scripture too, that idea. And that's in, that's from Eliah.com. Some good studies there, but he has a good health study that goes into that kind of thing.
But definitely our belief system and what we think, it's that stinking thinking. That's kind of a colloquialism that is probably way overused, but it's true. There's so many people that just, it goes back to that poverty of spirit, poverty of mind. They always look at the world, just doom and gloom and death and destruction, And yeah, I think that when you believe that and look at everything like that, and that's the world lens or the world view that you put on everything, more stuff's probably going to happen to you, unfortunately, because you're like bringing it on yourself.
Right. And if you're worried about stuff, you're not really putting your faith and trust in Yeshua.
Yeah. And you may be putting your faith and trust in other things.
Yeah.
So, and then the rest of it.
Yeshua was in Bethany.
Well, and man. I don't think I copied the rest of this, but he said 19. Yeah, I guess do 19. We did finish 19. I wish I would have done the rest of that. I wonder if he goes to the priest here and does that. Jake's going to look that up. We'll come back to that. But in Matthew 26:6, a woman prepares Yeshua's body for the tomb. And Yeshua was in Bethany, the home of Simon, a man who had suffered from a skin disease. While Yeshua was sitting there, a woman went to him with a bottle of very expensive perfume and poured it on his head. The disciples were irritated when they saw this, and they asked, why did she waste it? It could have been sold for a high price, and the money could have been given to the poor. Since Yeshua knew that what was going on, he said to them, why are you bothering this woman? She has done a beautiful thing for me. You will always have the poor with you, but you will not always have me. She poured this perfume on my body and placed it before it's placed in the tomb. So I can guarantee you this truth. Wherever the good news is spoken in the world, what she has done will also be told in memory of her. Nope.
Go back a couple. Where was Luke 1? Oh, what was the... No, go to the next one. Luke 17.
Luke 17, 11 through 19. So like Luke 17, 20.
Then it just goes into... when he was demanded of the Pharisees when the kingdom of Elohim should come, he answered them and said, the kingdom of Elohim comes not with observation.
Okay.
So it starts going into something else. But they did go away, right? Go show yourself. Verse 14 there.
Oh, he does. He does say, go show yourself to the priest. Yeah, right. 14. So he still tells them to follow Torah, basically. They knew what that meant.
Yeah.
It wasn't like he had to go explain the whole thing.
Yeah.
They knew it. So anyway, Yeshua gets anointed. And, Jake, I really don't remember where I was going with that piece of it, but...
Well, I did jump in the middle of what you were saying there. I'm sure it was very, very important.
I don't know where I was going.
Simon suffered a skin disease while Yeshua was sitting there.
Yeah, that's probably where it came from. So, yeah. I don't know.
And I think there's some controversy over that this might not be a skin disease. Some people say it is. Some people say it's leprosy.
Yeah.
Some people say that part of it isn't even in there.
Right. So. Well, and I think, that's kind of all I had. Clearly, I ran out of gas there at the end. Just kind of went off the cliff. Over the shark, like Fonzie. Speaking of, do you know that reference?
Jump the shark, yeah.
Well, very good. Very good. So, but, the bottom line is, just like leprosy and sin, it often starts off small and spreads, and we should be equally repulsed by the sin in our lives as the people were repulsed by the leprosy they saw coming down the road.
Right. And you can't be repulsed by sin if you don't know what it is.
That's right. And how do you know what it is?
Scripture.
All
Scripture
reading
is good for instruction in righteousness, right?
Yeah, reading the Scriptures. That's right. The whole book, cover to cover. It has, not just the end of the book, the beginning of the book too.
Right.
So, well, Jake, do you have anything else to add? Or anything else to say about the leprosy?
No, I think we
sin?
hit every detail about leprosy and its relation to sin, and how it's a type and shadow of sin when it's being expressed, and it shows up very clearly when you understand what sin is, what leprosy is, how you're to deal with leprosy, and how Yahweh deals with sin. I think the tie-in is pretty obvious.
Yeah. Well, before we leave this, I do want to show you that if you just type in Sabbath Lounge, you'll find that we're on. If you just Google Sabbath Lounge, we come up. We do very well in our search rankings.
Yeah.
So we pop up, on Yahushua Facebook, Sabbath Lounge YouTube. Listen to podcasts. I don't even know what that is. And then it goes into things that we're not even going to talk about here.
We're not associated with
yes. So, but we do have a website that if you go to it's yahushua.com, or if you just type in Sabbath Lounge, it does go to us. And so there you will find a little bit about, I should change this from my to our, an hour. Jake, don't let me forget that. So I don't mean to exclude you, but
I feel so excluded.
Yes. And so there's a Facebook link, and so there is a Facebook page, and it's giant apparently. So, and
well, you want people to be able to see it.
That's right.
Is the key.
So you can go to
and most of our viewers, very dim sight.
Yes. Yes. Apparently.
I'm speaking of me.
Yes. For sure. So, but anyway, that's one of the places you can find us. And
hey, this is blown up.
Yeah. Yep. And so here we have a blog and podcast. We have a voicemail, which we've had some voicemail. We appreciate that. And a YouTube channel. This will be published in YouTube. If you listen to this on a podcast, you might want to check out the YouTube so you can see it. So, but through time, I've posted different things. This is the latest about Shavuot and what it means, and fresh fruits, fresh fruits, first fruits.
Fresh fruits are good, though.
Yes, fresh fruit is delicious. So, but we appreciate if you check these things out, and most importantly, we're trying to grow this thing, and Jake and I, we don't make a dime from this. We don't ask anybody for money. We don't need to do that. We're blessed to be in a position where that's not required. Because
and thoughts on scripture shouldn't be paid for. I mean, right. You shouldn't have to pay to learn scripture.
Yeah. We do believe this should be free, and anything you see here you can use. It's not like I can't claim.
Copyrights aren't going to come after you.
That's right. There's no copyright police.
Matt and his big lawyers.
Yes. Yes, my big.
Their deep pockets.
Well, it's my Lincoln lawyer. Matthew McConaughey reference.
Okay.
So you never saw that movie, did you?
No. Guess not.
That's a pretty good one. So anyway, we appreciate you stopping by and listening. And as always, we appreciate a like, comment, subscribe, and especially a share. And that's where I was trying to go with this. Please share this with people. We are asking a young man that comes in our fellowship, and he's like, you just need to get 3 people. Just tell 3 people. And then if they tell 3 people, and then those 3 people tell 3 people.
Very simple.
Yes, that's all we got to do.
Yep.
So
it'll spread like a virus of sorts.
Yes, a virus. How interesting. So anyway, we appreciate you listening, and this is Matt signing off.
And Jake out.